A couple of days ago, I visited this place called Bedok Reservoir, and as soon as I stepped out of my house, a butterfly fluttered by and caught my eye. And I thought, interesting. Then, as I walked to the train station, I noticed there were more butterflies on my path, and I was like, how weird is that? Right then, two things went through my head. One, it felt like the spiritual realm was reaching out to me, and I just knew I was in for a spiritual experience that day. Two, I was thinking, what is it? What does the butterfly mean? I need to know. When I got to the reservoir, something nudged me to head left. And as I walked, I felt this amazing bubbly energy. I soon found myself at a floating deck, and I saw this gorgeous sunflower hanging on the gates. They were so pretty and vibrant. I was completely drawn to them, and I went straight to the flowers and took tons of pictures with them. That floating deck had a very strong, cheerful, and lively energy, and I was totally immersed in it. In fact, I even snapped a few shots of me jumping around despite the scorching hot sun. It was so much fun. But when I came back home, my brother was like, why did you go to the Bedok Reservoir? I specifically told you to stay away from water. I was like, hold on, you told me not to go to the beaches, so I went to a reservoir instead. Beach and reservoir, they are not the same thing. Then he said, didn't you know that the place is haunted and cursed? I mentioned it before, and this month is the Hungry Ghost Festival. You better not bring anything weird back. For those of you who might not know what the Hungry Ghost Festival is where the Buddhists and Taoists pray for their ancestor. During this month, the gates of hell are said to open, and ghosts wander the earth looking for food and entertainment. Honestly, I was pretty clueless at that time. I don't follow the news much, so I had no idea what was up with Bedok Reservoir. And then I said, oh, that's why they have the sunflower on the floating deck. It's to remember those who passed away. By the way, I took a ton of photos with the flower. And at that point, my brother totally lost it. You what? Why would you take photos with some random flowers? Delete those photos right now. But of course, I didn't. I was actually very curious about what went down at Bedok Reservoir. The whole time I was there, I didn't pick up any bad vibes at all. In fact, during my first part of the walk, I was totally immersed in the joy and fun. And then in the second part, I was feeling very calm and serene. There were zero bad vibes. If there had been, I would have sensed it since I'm pretty sensitive to energies. What I didn't tell you and my brother about is, before I even left the house, when I was picking out my clothes, I felt super drawn to this color yellow. I ended up grabbing a t-shirt with yellow on it, and at first I wanted to wear some bright yellow shorts too to match it. And while I was on the train and bus heading to the venue, I kept noticing yellow popping up everywhere. So when I got to the floating deck, I was instantly drawn to these bright yellow sunflowers. And also at another part of the reservoir, I saw another butterfly, this time a stunning orange butterfly, and I followed it and it led me to some yellow flowers. It landed on them and started collecting nectars. I went closer and it started fluttering and landed on the yellow flowers again. It was as though the universe was pointing to me that this color, yellow, 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 and trying to get my attention. But at the time, I didn't think too much about the butterfly, the color yellow, or the sunflower. Now that my brother have mentioned how haunted the place is, I feel that the other side might be trying to send me a message. So I decided to look into Bedok Reservoir a bit more. In my research, I discovered that over 6 months in 2011, there were about 6 deaths in the reservoir, and apparently they were all suicides. Then there was a recent case in November 2023. A body of a 21-year-old man was found in the reservoir. Near where they found him, there were some wine bottles and a yellow soft toy. Yes, yellow again. But I was wondering, 2023 was last year. Would someone put the sunflowers there in August this year? So being curious, I started digging for more information. Then I stumbled upon another suicide case. In late July 2024, which is just 3 weeks ago, the body of a 20-year-old lady was found in the reservoir. These recent cases weren't covered by the big news channel here in Singapore. They were mostly covered by those smaller local tabloids. And I spent a couple of hours searching before I found them. When I discovered the case, I felt even more compelled to dig a little deeper, and I found a thread in a local forum sharing this news. The user of the original poster was 11.11. The moment I saw that, I got goosebumps. I got a feeling that those sunflowers were for the 20-year-old girl because the number 1 and 1111 hold special meaning for me. You can check out this video over here for more information about that. As I read through the comments on that thread, people were speculating about her death. And then I came across a post from her siblings. It mentioned how the sister battled bipolar disorder and she struggled to overcome her challenge. And in the end, she decided to end her life. One line really stood out for me. It says, she was once a bubbly, cheerful, lively, passionate girl. I then realized that that's exactly the kind of energy I felt when I was at a floating deck. Bubbly, cheerful, and lively. I want to share this story with you because it highlights that there's really life after death. And sometimes it's not as scary as we imagine it to be. When I asked the spiritual realm what it all means, I received a powerful message from the other side. The message was clear. The people who has passed on don't want to be remembered as the 20-year-old girl who has struggled with bipolar disorder, or that 21-year-old who fell into the waters after a night of drinking. That's not their true self. She isn't someone with a distorted mind. What she truly is a bubbly, cheerful, passionate spirit. Our spirit is our true, authentic self. Our minds doesn't represent who we are. We all came here with our spiritual self. It's just that along the way, the conditioning, our beliefs form, we forget about who we truly are and get lost in the chaos of our minds. But our spirit is always there behind the veil. And when we pass on, we return to that original state of being, the energy that we came here with. Just like how the 21-year-old girl returned to her bubbly and cheerful energy. We don't bring our distorted mind with us to our afterlife. And this applies to anyone who has passed, whether through suicide, accident, or tragedy. They don't want to be seen as the victim or receive sympathy. Instead, they want to be remembered for their spirit, the essence of who they were before the suffering or tragedy struck them. And you know what? The soul recognition isn't just for those who have passed. It applies to all of us who are still here. Who we really are goes beyond the chaos of our minds and the story we tell ourselves. We often use phrases like, he has such a good fighting spirit, or your grandma has such a feisty spirit, or your friend brings a calming presence. All these vibes that people give off are the true representation of their spirit. That's what we really are. We're not this analytical mind or suffering mind or egos we often identify with. When you see someone dealing with a mental condition, try to look beyond their struggle and really see the person they are. Focus on their spirit within and help remind them of it. The more we recognize and connect with our own spirit, the more authentic we feel in our lives. And why were I chosen to experience this? I guess it's because first, I became more sensitive and open to the other side. And second, I've been there before. Almost 10 years ago, I almost jumped into a river and ended my life. Unlike what most other people might think, people who take their own life don't always plan for it. At least for me, I didn't. It was driven by my crazy, depressed mind. And I totally get how people who take their life feel in those moments. The only difference is that I chose to live. Something clicked inside me that day, and I had a spiritual awakening. And since then, the sound of my spirit has been so strong that it drowns out that noisy mind of mine. And if you're curious about my first spiritual awakening and what I think about suicide and ego death, check out this next video.